Hey all, Tom Moran here from Tom's Big Spiders. This one's going to feature another rehousing video. This time around, it's my Chilobrachys fimbriatus. This is a species that when I was first getting serious into the hobby, I saw and was enamored with, but after doing some research, realized that I probably wasn't quite ready for. And then unfortunately, kind of lost track of them for a little while. I think they're one of those species that pops up quite a bit and is readily available, so I kind of passed them over. Well, a couple of years ago, I finally picked up a sling, and now she's a, well, young adult girl and needs a new enclosure. So we're going to go ahead and rehouse this one. So enough of me talking, let's get on to the actual video. All right, so we've been looking forward to this one for a while. This one we're going to rehouse my Chilobrachys fimbriatus, or Indian violet. Love this spider. Love Chilobrachys species in general. I think they get a terrible rep sometimes for being super dangerous and scary, and I really haven't found that. Now, obviously, they're quick. Obviously, the potential is there for a nasty bite because it is an old world species, but I really haven't had that much trouble with them, knock on wood. So what we have here is a 5.5 gallon tank. The top was originally screened. It's been replaced. Of course, there's dust all over from me filling it up with dirt. And the reason for that is they can get their toe claws caught in the wire mesh. Inside, we have BioDude substrate with leaf litter. We have, I don't know what, I'll have to look up with the names of these here, but these are nice. What we do have in here, it's not a full bioactive enclosure. Like, I don't have plants in it right now. I was going to put plants in it, but I didn't have anything appropriate for it. But it does have springtails. And when you use springtails, you want to create little areas for them that they can hide under that will maintain moisture, because what will happen is eventually, even with moisture dependent species, the top layers will dry out a bit in between waterings, and they will congregate basically underneath water dishes, underneath larger pieces of wood. Here we have about 5 inches of substrate. Over here we got about 6.5 inches. Now, the reason why we don't go all the way up to the top is if this one burrows, what it's going to do is bring up a lot of dirt from down here and stack it up around here. So that this thing will fill up rather quickly. And I think that's a mistake some people make when rehousing fossorial species, is they put the dirt all the way up, but then there's no place for the dirt to go. Then you have a situation where you go to pull the top off and the dirt's stacked right up here. Also, if it doesn't dig and it doesn't burrow, what it will probably do is web up a bit on the surface, and you want to leave some area for it to web up. Because unfortunately, if I put this too high and it webs up here, now we have a situation that it webs right up to the top of the enclosure. Every time I slide the top of the enclosure out of the way, it's like ripping the roof off of the house. It gets them all jacked up, and you're going to end up with a defensive spider. So you try to plan for both of those possibilities. So really excited about getting her in this one. The enclosure she's in here, she's definitely outgrown it. The problem with the fossorials is sometimes you don't see them for a while, and when you do see them, you realize they've totally outgrown the enclosure. But we started this one off in a dram vial. I think I got her in about October of 2018. She was a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch sling. They grow rather quickly. They eat fantastically. Is a burrowing species, a fossorial species. So once she hit about 1.5 inches or so, we moved her out into this one here. She's been in there for quite some time, and now we're going to go ahead and rehouse her. So hopefully this goes really well. Now, right off the bat, you always want to give fossorial species a starter burrow. One mistake I see a lot of times when I look at people rehousing is they don't give them a starter burrow. They either just give them a bunch of dirt and expect them to dig, or they put a piece of cork bark in there, or sometimes not even a piece of cork bark, and don't do any digging underneath. You want a nice dark spot that they'll go into. That helps out. That keeps the spider from bouncing right back out of the enclosure when you put it in. Also, with fossorial species, if you give them a starter burrow, they can go in there, they can feel safe, secure, they'll start eating usually faster, they'll start their webbing and digging, wherein if you don't give them this, what you end up with is a spider up in the corner because they feel more secure with all that area around them. Then down here, you don't want them up in the corner, you want to give them a spot down here so they settle in more quickly. All right, so we're going to slide this one over. I'm going to start the other camera that I completely forgot to start. Now I'm hoping with this one I can poke it through one of these holes up here. So I think the spider is right in there. So I have a plan. We've got this new catch cup that we use for the Metallicas that I like because it's square. Come on. And what we're doing here is using, The worst part is before we started this, I took her out, she was right on top. There we go, there we go. Nope, nope, nope. There we go. All right, so hopefully Billy can get some. I love the looks. I love Chilobrachys species, and I'll tell you, it's funny, when I first got into the hobby, unfortunately, what ended up happening is I saw some of these on Jamie's Tarantulas site, and they looked just amazing. And then I read that they were defensive old worlds, heard all these horror stories about them. So I ended up getting, a few years later, Chilobrachys guanziensis first. Realized they weren't that bad, and then started going through grabbing other Chilobrachys species. But really happy to have this. I'm hoping, I keep calling it a lady. I'm hoping it's a lady. We're going to go ahead and just drop this whole mess in, I think. Now, one of the things we try to do with these rehousings is teach some tips. When you don't have any mold in your original enclosure, because sometimes you do rehousings and you have some mold in it, so you don't want to carry over the old stuff. But if there's not a situation like that, as I move the camera over here, what you want to do is you can take all that stuff out with the spider. It's safer. It keeps you from having any more contact with the spider, because what we can do in a minute is I can take this off, the spider can go on its merry way, and then later on, after the spider goes down into the burrow, leaves this mess behind, we can pull all of that stuff out. So what I'm going to do is get the cover ready to go on. Hopefully she'll stay out with us a little bit so we can get some footage of her. Too close. There we go. Good. Gorgeous spider. And as you can see, she's just sitting there. She's not threat posturing. She's not bolting right now. I'm going to slide this closed while I talk a little bit more, because again, you don't want to, you know, poke the bear. But there she is, sitting right on top. Easy rehousing. Later on, what I will do is I will go back and probably pluck that whole mess out. But right now, that's the safe way to do it. Another trick, I've heard people say before, I went to rehouse them, but I couldn't get them out of the catch cup, so I put her back in the old enclosure. If there's enough room, leave the catch cup in. I've done that before too. There's no reason to put yourself in a situation where you're fighting an angry spider or trying to prod them off. You can sometimes set them off. I'll go ahead and open this a little bit so you can get a better shot of her, but beautiful girl. Now again, as an old world species, we can't downplay the fact that this would have medically significant venom. There are bite reports out there for them. You do not want to get bitten, but here's something people don't talk about very often. If you exercise caution, good rehousing techniques, good feeding and maintenance techniques, you use tongs, you keep your hands out of the way, you do not have a dangerous animal. More often than not, the only time something's going to happen is during the rehousings, and as you can see there are ways to rehouse these guys where there is minimal to no chance of contact with the owner. That's what we try to do here. So there we go, C. fimbriatus, beautiful girl. Actually, I kind of like the way the webbing looks, but unfortunately I don't know if she's, yeah, there's a spot in there that she can go into the new place. Hopefully we'll get in there, we'll get her situated. I'll try feeding her later on, but looking great. Nice, easy rehousing. No sweat. All right, so one of the most important things you can do when rehousing spiders is be ready to switch on the fly. So in that instance, I was hoping what I could do was kind of prod her out of the hole and into the catch cup. When she wouldn't come, we just lifted the whole thing up. We all go into these rehousings with the best laid plans, but sometimes they don't go the way we originally intended. The trick is to be able to move and do whatever is the safest thing at that time. In this instance, just lifted the whole thing out, put her in. I will say that she started to web up in the enclosure, and that pile of stuff I put in there has actually become part of her den. So I'm not going to rip it all out. I'm going to leave it in there, let her play with it. I will take that little water dish out though, and that's going to be a little tricky. So I'm going to probably cover over both holes, take the water dish out, and then just let her go ahead and web. Now, Now, just to be clear, although my rehousing went well, this is an old world species. They have been known to bolt. They have been known to be skittish and to throw up threat postures, and they obviously have potent venom. So always be careful. One of the things we always joke about here is we plan for the worst and hope for the best. So plan for a bad scenario, plan what happens if the tarantula gets out, but hope for a good transfer like I usually get. So that will do it for this one. As always, if you haven't checked out any of my videos before, you can find them around in here, or if you liked it enough to subscribe, very much appreciated. You can click the circle right up around in here. I have a hard time always figuring out where to put it. I answer all my comments, so please feel free to comment. I love getting comments from people. It may take me a day or so, but I try to keep on them. And I hope to catch you guys on the comment section and catch you next time.